Hi, I'm Ben Hirsch from Campers in RV, and today we're going to be talking about setting up and preparing for your first camping trip. So camping season is whatever time that you want to make a camping season. In all seriousness, your RV will dictate some of when you can go camping. There are 4-season RVs, there are less than 4-season or almost 4-season RVs. There's RVs that are have a lot of canvas and tenting, and if you're willing to go in the cold, you can, right? So a lot of camping season, generally speaking, for a lot of the United States is going to be that April through September timeframe. But the truth is there's still campers that are out there all sorts of other times a year. The further south you go, it's a year-round activity, so you can come camping whenever you want. One of the peak times a year, just know that the peak times, the summer holidays, are generally going to be huge peak times. A lot more expensive, but there's a lot of campers there too, and oftentimes those are some of the most fun times of year to go camping. When you're looking to book your first trip, the time of year does make a difference. All of your campgrounds will have when they're open, when they close, what the different rates are, different times of year. So that's all research that you'll want to do, depending on the part of the country that you're from, and depending on the time of year and the holidays that you might be looking to go camping. So the first thing when looking up campground is, where do you want to go? Right? There's all sorts of campgrounds all over the place, and identifying a general area where you're looking to go. Then it's the time to research. So you can go on Google, you can go on to different campground websites and actually search campgrounds in whatever area. So let's say you're going in the greater Boston area, so you could do campgrounds in Massachusetts or campgrounds in Boston. You're going to Orlando, you might do campgrounds near Disney World, right? So you look that up. Then you're going to find yourself on a lot of these campgrounds websites, and that's where it's really important on your first camping trip that we do some preparation. So some of the biggest items of preparation is, number one, will your RV even fit on the site? And I know that sounds funny, but there's certain restrictions for certain sites. So they may say on the sites, no more than 30 feet for this particular site. Or it might be restricted to slide outs only on one side, not on both sides. So these are important things to look up and really do some research. If the website, if the campground doesn't have it on there, give them a call and ask them, what are the restrictions? When thinking about the size of your camper, you have to think about not just the length of the box. So oftentimes an RV, the model number says like a 28 bunkhouse, right? But oftentimes that doesn't include the bumper and the hitch. So your RV may actually be 32, 33 feet. So make sure you know that, because a lot of campgrounds may have restrictions at 30 or 35 or 40 feet. If you have a big 45-foot bus, you may not be able to put it on that 40-foot site. Another thing to consider if you have a tow vehicle and you have the RV is the full length that you can put on it. Some campgrounds have restrictions on your car or your tow vehicle on the actual road of the campground. So it's important to consider all these things when looking at the size of the site. A second thing to look for when looking at campsites is the amenities for that particular site. So RVs come in all shapes and sizes nowadays. One of the most important things to consider is your electricity, and they call it amps, right? So most RVs come in either 30 or 50 amps. A 30 amp generally is going to have one AC and a whole bunch of electronics in it. Most RVs with 2 or more ACs are 50 amps. That's a rule of thumb. It's not 100% true. So when looking up the campgrounds, you may have 2 air conditioners on your RV, maybe a 50 amp camper. And if you want to use both of those at the same time and not use an adapter and have to use one air conditioner or the other, you'll want to make sure that you find a 50 amp site. Other things to consider when looking up your campsite is the water and sewer hookups. So some campsites have sewer hookups for those sites. Other campgrounds may have them for only certain sites, and some campgrounds, almost all campgrounds, will have a dump station. So if you don't have a sewer hookup, then when you're coming or going, you can go by the sewer dump station and actually dump your tanks in there. Another is water. Do you have fresh water hookup at the campsite? If you do, you can hook up. If not, you'll want to fill up your water tanks before you leave and make sure that you have that fresh water for when you're at the campground. So generally speaking, when we look at the amenities at the site, there's more, but the general big ones are 30 or 50 amp, the sewer, and the water. Of course, there's all the other small fun amenities, like do you have a picnic table and do you have a fire pit and those sorts of things, but You know, the basic ones are those basic amenities that allow you to either camp the way you want or not. So a few things to look out for when booking your campsite is actually the campgrounds as a whole. So there's lots of forums and blogs and review sites, and myself and a lot of other campers use those to determine which campgrounds we want to go to. So typically I'll look at some reviews, and you know, there's positive and negative to everywhere. So I'll look at a few and see if it's a campground that I don't want to go to, because there might be a lot of people that stay there for the whole summer, which isn't bad, but if you're just coming in for a weekend, oftentimes it can be awkward. And having been an RVer, I've been in that situation. So some RV sites or RV campgrounds are more meant for the long-term stays, and some are meant for those transient stays. Another red flag is how easy is it going to be to get your RV in the site? Personally, I love pull-through sites. It's great. You come in, you pull through the site, you drop your jacks, and you're done, right? But there's a lot of sites, most sites out there, there's some sort of backup that you have to do. And be careful about picking a site that's on a corner, on a sharp curve, because backing up can be really awkward, especially if the road isn't that big where you're backing it up. If you have a big 40-foot trailer and you have a big truck pulling it, and the site is only meant for 40 feet, and it's at the edge of a curve, and it's a full weekend, and you're coming in at 10 o'clock at night, prepare for some misery when you go ahead and get to that campground. So some of the things that I'd look out for is how easy is it going to be for me to get in the campsite? Do they have pull-throughs? They're generally a little bit more money, but they do stop some arguments, which is always great. And one of the other things is when I'm going and how easy is it going to be for me to get in there? And something that you can't tell online, but it's worth a phone call, is do they allow after-hours check-ins? Some campgrounds do, some campgrounds don't. Do they have lighting if you're going to be going there at night? So oftentimes looking online, getting some feedback is a good place to start. And then some of the questions, depending on when you're going, picking up the phone and calling the campground to really help you. So after we look at the basic amenities that you need to have a fun camping experience, then there's some of the luxury amenities that you might enjoy, you might look out for. So some of them is the overall campground amenities. Where is it located? Right? So some of these campgrounds have great locations right next to popular tourist destinations, maybe on a lake, right? And you're right on that tourist destination lake. Do they have swimming areas, whether it's a lake or is it a pool? Some campgrounds even have heated pools, right? So the amenities can really step themselves up. How about the amenity center? Do they have a camp store? What's the size of the camp store? Do they have groceries there? Do they have activities at the campground? A lot of campgrounds have events like, bingo nights, or stuff for the kids, or campfires with the groups, all sorts of different things. So oftentimes those are listed on the website, and you can even find a schedule. And some campgrounds have schedules all day, every day. Some have just some weekend schedules, and there's some research you'll have to look into. So one of the things to be really careful of is, unlike hotels, campgrounds are hard to get in and out of with an RV. So you can just show up to a campground and hope they have a space, and if they have one, they'll rent it to you or let you stay there. But it's a really good practice to call ahead of time. When you're looking to book a campground, I'd make sure that you're calling them weeks in advance. But if you're transient and just passing through, a lot of us have been camping across the country. It's okay to actually call campgrounds a day or same day and find out if they have availability. Just know that they may not, and you may have to travel a little bit further to find a campground that does have availability. So yes, you can do same day bookings, but I'd caution you that if it's your first RVing trip, I'd make sure to have a little bit more planning to make sure it's enjoyable and you get the campground that you really want to stay at. Nowadays, Wi-Fi is a big deal at RV parks and while RVing. So especially a lot of the kids that we bring nowadays when we go camping, even a lot of adults, they want Wi-Fi, especially people that work from their RV. So one of the features to look for when you're going camping is, what's the Wi-Fi ability of the campground? Do they have Wi-Fi? Some of them even have Ethernet cords or internet cords that you hook up your RV to. Some RVs now have boosters, Wi-Fi boosters. Does your RV have a Wi-Fi booster? So even if there's a weak signal coming from maybe the campground office, can you boost that and get Wi-Fi in your RV? But it's a feature that we really need to consider when going RVing for the first time. How much internet usage do we plan on having? What sort of Wi-Fi do we need? Does that campground have the Wi-Fi that we want? And does our RV have some extra features that can help out with Wi-Fi? And if the answer is you really need Wi-Fi and you're not sure about the campground, there's even aftermarket products that can give you additional cell signals that turn them into Wi-Fi so you can have connectivity everywhere you go across the United States. Nowadays at RV parks, Wi-Fi can go from almost every site is covered with Wi-Fi to there is no internet whatsoever and your cell phone won't work because it's remote. So it's really important to consider these when picking where you're going to be going camping. So one of the things that I always look for is that there's at least some sort of connectivity. Oftentimes, if you call up the campground, they may have that answer, but more than likely, you're going to find it when looking up that campground online, looking at the reviews. There's oftentimes people that will say how much cell phone connectivity or what sort of Wi-Fi that they have. But don't expect there to be Wi-Fi and connectivity everywhere you go, especially in remote locations. I hope this video has helped you prepare for your first camping trip, decide where to go, and everything that comes with your first RVing experience. Whether you're going by yourself, with a pet, with family or friends, it's going to be a great experience. I hope you enjoy it. At Campers in RV, we pride ourselves on being the RVer's trusted resource. We have a blog and website full of information for you to do research on, finding out where you want to go, videos like this. I encourage you to explore it at this link below, and I hope you have a wonderful time on your first RVing adventure.